Hi, this is a brief introduction of the GRE exam. It is also called the GRE 1 or the GRE General Test. GRE is an acronym for Graduate Record Examination. GRE is a test taken by graduate students who want to take admission into a postgraduate program such as an MS, MBA or PhD program in universities in USA, Canada, Europe, Singapore, Australia and the Arabian Gulf region. GRE is accepted as a requirement of MBA admission process in a much greater number of countries. GRE has been created and administered by the Educational Testing Service, ETS, since 1949. GRE is offered as a computer-based exam administered at Prometric testing centers. The American education system focuses upon the holistic development of personality of a student. They do not have a single-point focus on academics alone. Moreover, in an American program, the learning is not only driven by teachers and knowledge in books, but also focuses on peer learning and developing intellectual abilities in a student. So admission to the best colleges and universities in the U.S. is based on the complete profile of a prospective student. This profile is a function of numerical and subjective parameters. Numerical parameters include academic grades, GPA, scores on GRE reasoning test, and in some cases, the scores on GRE subject tests may be required. Subjective parameters are more complex and include difficulty level and diversity of academic courses pursued, inclination for research and academic activities, quality and participation in extracurricular activities, work experience, unique perspective a candidate may have, cross-cultural experience, leadership and team skills, the diversity a candidate may add to his or her peer group at the college, etc. Most of the subjective parameters are indicated by essays that a student needs to write. Letters of recommendation provide a neutral third-person assessment of the subjective parameters by the teachers and at times even by employers. As students applying to colleges come from diverse countries, and different systems of education, backgrounds, academic subjects, which teach less or more of a certain area, so GRE scores provide a common objective numerical yardstick to compare all candidates. Good colleges are also concerned whether an admitted student would be capable of handling the academically rigorous programs offered by them. Past academic performance can predict future academic performance, so high GPA is sought. Past GPA and GRE scores take care of this concern, so they are important parameters for selection. Moreover, as top Ivy League colleges receive a huge number of admission applications, so an easy way to weed out reject a bulk of candidates is to use a minimal score on the GRE as a qualifier. This cutoff value of GRE score is higher for more competitive top Ivy League colleges and changes every year. Another factor in the admission process is the ranking organizations for colleges and universities. Students and parents, while deciding colleges to apply to, rely on reports of college ranking organizations. There are many ranking organizations such as U.S. News, Forbes, Business Insider, Council for Aid to Education, The Daily Beast's Guide to the Best Colleges, The Economist, Educate to Career Rankings, Faculty Scholarly Productivity Rankings, etc. The ranking organizations give a lot of weightage to GRE scores of students admitted to an undergraduate program to decide on ranking of a college, so universities are under pressure to admit students with higher scores on the GRE. Although for admissions to postgraduate or MS and PhD programs in universities in USA, GRE has no alternative. But, in case of global business schools, instead of the GRE, students can also take the GMAT exam, which is a more widely accepted test for admission to MBA programs. GRE and GMAT have different syllabi and different levels of acceptance in different global business schools. They also measure different skills. Please check our video session GMAT versus GRE. Which test and why? To understand parameters to be considered while deciding between GRE and GMAT for admission to an MBA program from a global business school. The GRE is an aptitude test for postgraduate admissions. An aptitude test is a modified intelligence quotient test or an IQ test to check whether a candidate has the desired potential and attitude for pursuing a certain academic course. The GRE is an aptitude test for admission to an MS, MBA or PhD program, so apart from testing your intelligence, GRE is also molded to test whether you can handle an academically challenging MS, MBA or PhD program and excel in it. Scientists believe that intelligence at the time of birth depends on nutrition and heredity, that is, the genes from parents. If your parents are intelligent, then you would be born intelligent. But this is not the whole story. After birth, your intelligence keeps on increasing fast because you use your brain. As you use your brain more and more, your brain becomes a well-oiled machine and gets sharper. So, you need an environment which propels you to use your brain and become intelligent. Such an environment is called an enabling environment. This enabling environment ensures that we have reasons to use our brain more. Moreover, scientists have observed that intelligent people have a tendency to seek enabling environments that would make them sharper. So it is a reciprocal relationship also. The role of nutrition and balanced diet with intelligence is also important. For example, people who lack the required amount of iodine in their diet become progressively less intelligent. So, keep an eye on what you eat or drink. Every IQ test measures 4 broad areas: language skills, mathematical proficiency, reasoning ability, and hallmarks of intelligence. Psychologists who design and analyze IQ tests are called psychometricians. These psychometricians believe that learning a language is such a difficult task for the brain that as you learn language, your brain is used more and it becomes sharper, so proficiency in a language becomes an indicator of sharpness of brain. So testing of language abilities is part of every IQ test. The presence of verbal reasoning sections on GRE is a manifestation of this belief. The psychometricians also believe that mathematics is a difficult subject and becoming proficient in mathematics makes the brain a well-oiled machine. IQ tests are not focusing on subject knowledge of mathematics or your ability to handle long calculations, so the mathematics appearing on IQ tests does not check for difficult mathematics concepts and long calculations. What appears on an IQ test in place of mathematics is given a different name and is called as quantitative ability or quantitative reasoning. It checks easier math concepts and easier calculation ability. Though, questions on the quantitative reasoning sections have confusing and tricky language that encourages you to make silly mistakes. Reasoning is a third tested area on IQ tests. Now, reasoning may not have been taught to you in your school or college, unless you did philosophy majors, but it does not mean that you have not learned reasoning. Rather, reasoning is the first subject we study immediately after birth. For example, human babies are capable of doing just a few things after birth. They can barely move their hands and legs. They can suckle milk, shit in their nappies and cry. But, human babies are so smart that within the first day on this earth they realize that crying has a lot of magic. It gets them a lot of attention. They are hugged, caressed and rocked. They are offered food and taken care of. So, they start using the trick of crying. So when a baby has a tummy ache, is hungry, feeling hot, cold or uncomfortable, has soiled its nappies or even if it feeling bored, then it will cry and magic happens. There is some slave to dance to its needs, whims and fancies. This crying is the first reasoning lesson we all learn. It's important for our survival, and is an example of reasoning skills being developed. So what is reasoning? Reasoning entails taking in information and making a decision based on it. Say, if you are hungry and you decide to eat food, or on feeling thirsty, you look for water, then you are already good at a fancy area of reasoning called deductive logic. The only thing you may not have seen could be how reasoning is tested, so that's what practice is for. You can attempt questions to see where are we thinking incorrectly and subsequently you can correct ourselves on that kind of a problem. Hallmarks of intelligence is a covert issue tested on IQ tests. Remember that GRE is an IQ test modified to the requirements of the postgraduate admission process. Certain questions test whether you behave like a really intelligent person with an IQ above a 150. Really intelligent people with an above-average IQ have a certain different way of thinking and approach problems in a different manner. For example, such intelligent people use a sequential objective method to reach a conclusion or a decision. This sequential objective method is required in questions of critical reasoning. Such intelligent people understand the concept of picking answers according to needs of scope and relevance to the argument. Such intelligent people understand the importance of evidence-based reading comprehension and keep away from extrapolation and inductive logic. They also have a tendency to look for symmetry in constructing their sentences and keep away from politically incorrect or extreme language. They also do not rely on their memory and have an inclination for doing scratch work or rough work to calculate their answer accurately. Moreover, they use different strategies to do different kinds of questions. Actually, a question can be attempted by many methods, and the method which ensures that you take least amount of time and with least chance of making a silly or a technical mistake is called as its strategy. For example, they convert algebra questions into an arithmetic language to crack them, but in case of word problems, intelligent people convert arithmetic language into algebraic language to solve the questions effectively. If you do not do all these things automatically, you will have to learn them. We can help you in learning these hallmarks of intelligence. Moreover, as success in postgraduate programs need proficiency in critical thinking, argumentation, writing essays, and understanding more complex instructions, so these abilities are also tested on the GRE. If you look at it holistically, then, on the GRE, you are tested at 3 different levels. At the first level, a certain threshold of knowledge is required and tested. This is part of testing of crystallized intelligence, a knowledge-based ability that is very dependent on education and experience. This could be comprised of certain concepts that you would already know and others which you will have to learn right from scratch. If I talk about data analysis topics in quantitative reasoning section, then it requires that you have knowledge of basic descriptive statistics, such as mean, median, mode, range, standard deviation, interquartile range, quartiles and percentiles. Interpretation of data in tables and graphs, such as line graphs, bar graphs, circle graphs, box plots, scatter plots and frequency distributions. Elementary probability, such as probabilities of compound events and independent events. Conditional probability. Random variables and probability distributions, including normal distributions. And counting methods, such as combinations, permutations and Venn diagrams. These topics are typically taught in high school algebra courses or introductory statistics courses. Another complication in terms of knowledge is that the GRE is an American exam with an American context and has been designed for a typical American student. So some biases against a non-American student do creep into this exam. You need to be aware of these issues. Say in case of text completion and sentence equivalence, a certain level of American vocabulary and American English usage is tested. So, anything uniquely American can cause confusion. So terms such as sophomore, upstate, downzoning, rhetoric, affirmative action, counsel, local bond, daylight saving hours, community service, markup, syntactic, filigree, people of color, repertory, delinquent, fledgling, downtown, egalitarian, etc. create the major problem for you that you do not even understand the fancy language of the question itself. The second level of testing on the GRE is hallmarks of intelligence. Remember that GRE is an IQ test modified to the requirements of the undergraduate college admission process. Certain questions test whether you behave like a really intelligent person with an IQ above a 150. Really intelligent people with an above-average IQ have a certain different way of thinking and approach problems in a different manner. For example, such intelligent people use a sequential objective method to reach a conclusion or a decision. This sequential objective method is required in critical reasoning. Such intelligent people understand the concept of picking answers according to needs of scope and relevance to the argument in critical reasoning questions. Such intelligent people understand the importance of evidence-based reading comprehension and keep away from extrapolation and inductive logic. They also have a tendency to look for symmetry in constructing their sentences and keep away from politically incorrect or extreme language. They also do not rely on their memory and have an inclination for doing scratch work or rough work to calculate their answer accurately. Moreover, they use different strategies to do different kinds of questions. Actually, a question can be attempted by many methods, and the method which ensures that you take least amount of time and with least chance of making a silly or a technical mistake is called as its strategy. For example, really intelligent people convert algebra questions into an arithmetic language to crack them. If you do not do all these things automatically, you will have to learn them. We can help you in learning these hallmarks of intelligence. The third level of testing on the GRE is test-taking dynamics. After you have practiced on a lot of questions, and know how to crack them impeccably, it may still not translate into a perfect score. Because during the actual exam, performance anxiety encourages you to make mistakes. Moreover, you may not have the mental stamina to use your brain for a 4-hour-long test. Under test conditions, you make a greater number of silly mistakes because of 4 reasons. These are test anxiety, lower attention span, less stamina, and newer format of exam. Let's understand these 4 issues and their solutions. A. In terms of anxiety, just the thought that we are being tested causes butterflies in our stomach. This performance anxiety affects your scores badly. So attempt as many simulated exams as possible so that you become immune to anxiety. B. Understand what is a lower attention span. You have an attention span of 15 to 30 minutes, but this is almost a 4-hour exam, so after the first 30 minutes, you feel like taking a break to perform better later, but you are not permitted to do this. To increase your attention span, get into the habit of using your brain continuously for longer stretches of time, without even taking a moment's break during your study. Learn to study without distractions such as your cell phone ringing or anyone barging into your room while you are studying. C. In terms of stamina, after an hour or 2 of testing, your brain gets tired and drained, so questions seem more difficult to understand and solve, leading to more mistakes. Here also the solution is to study for longer stretches of time, without taking breaks. Remember, you are preparing for a marathon and not a 100-meter dash. D. Lastly, as the GRE has a different format of exam, so taking an online exam divided into several sections, where you can only work on one section in a stipulated time works against your scores. The solution is attempting greater number of mock exams, 15 to be precise. This gives you a grip on GRE testing and makes you immune to the pitfalls. Moreover, analysis of each test by the student followed by analysis by the teacher helps to identify the gray areas that need focus. The GRE is a 3-hour and 45-minute long test, with a 10-minute break, after the third section, or after 2 hours of testing. 1-minute break between other sections. Except for the essay, rest of the exam is objective in nature, mostly multiple choice questions. The exam is divided into 6 sections, an analytical writing assessment section, 2 verbal reasoning sections, 2 quantitative reasoning sections and an experimental section, which can either be a verbal reasoning or a quantitative reasoning section. But you will not be able to identify which section is the experimental one. At times, the experimental section may be replaced by a research section. If a research section comes on your exam, it will be positioned in the end. This is a quick visual of what the structure of GRE exam looks like. The test starts with the analytical writing assessment section of 1 hour. In the AWA section, you have to type in 2 essays, called as analysis of an issue and analysis of an argument. Now you have 2 verbal reasoning sections, 2 quantitative reasoning sections and an experimental section. This experimental section can either be a verbal reasoning or a quantitative reasoning section. But you will not be able to identify which section is the experimental one. At times, the experimental section may be replaced by a research section. If a research section comes on your exam, it will be positioned in the end. The multiple choice sections can appear in any order on test day. The order of sections is random, and your test will be different from that of the person sitting next to you. You get a 10-minute break after the third section, or after 2 hours of testing. In between other sections, you will get a 1-minute break. You can pause the video at this stage if you want to spend more time to understand the structure of the exam. So, GRE broadly tests you on 3 subjects in the 6 different sections on the exam. The test always begins with an AWA, or Analytical Writing Assessment, followed by Quantitative Reasoning and Verbal Reasoning sections in a jumbled order. The duration of Analytical Writing Assessment section is 1 hour, in which you have to type in 2 discrete essays, called as Analyze an Issue Task and Analysis of an Argument Task. The 2 tasks are complementary in that one requires you to construct your own argument by taking a position and providing evidence supporting your views on an issue, and the other requires you to evaluate someone else's argument by assessing its claims and evaluating the evidence it provides. So, a single combined score is reported because it is more reliable than a score for either task alone. The Analytical Writing Assessment sections tests your critical thinking and analytical writing skills. It assesses your ability to articulate and support complex ideas, construct and evaluate arguments, and sustain a focused and coherent discussion. It does not assess specific content knowledge. These essays have to be typed using a basic word processor developed by ETS. The processor in the real test is similar to Microsoft Word, but this basic word processor contains only the following functionalities: insert text, delete text, cut and paste, and undo the previous action. Tools such as a spell checker and grammar checker are not available in the ETS software. You can practice writing essays using the word processor component of GRE Prep 2 software, which can be downloaded from www.gre.org. As far as checking of essays is concerned, for the computer-delivered test, each essay receives a score from at least one trained reader, using a 6-point holistic scale. In holistic scoring, readers are trained to assign scores on the basis of the overall quality of an essay in response to the assigned task. The essay score is then scored by eRater, a computerized program developed by ETS that is capable of identifying essay features related to writing proficiency. If the human and eRater scores closely agree, the average of the 2 scores is used as the final score. If they disagree by 1 point, a second human score is obtained, and the final score is the average of the 2 human scores. As a student, you need to know that you must ensure a grade of 4.5 or above to be safe. These are the standard directions and the prompt for the Analyze an Issue essay. The directions say in this section, you will need to analyze the issue presented and explain your views on it. There is no correct answer. Instead, you should consider various perspectives as you develop your own position on the issue. Then you have to write a response in which you discuss the extent to which you agree or disagree with the statement and explain your reasoning for the position you take. In developing and supporting your position, you should consider ways in which the statement might or might not hold true and explain how these considerations shape your position. Take a few minutes to think about the issue and plan a response before you begin writing. Be sure to organize your ideas and develop them fully, but leave enough time to reread your response and make any revisions that you think are necessary. The following is the topic or prompt given to you.
Many people believe that a few individuals or small groups, family, friends, teachers, celebrities, for example, have caused them to think and behave in the way they do. Yet it is always society as a whole that defines us and our attitudes, not a few individuals.
These are the standard directions and the prompt for the Analyze an Issue essay. The directions say discuss how well reasoned you find this argument. In your discussion, be sure to analyze the line of reasoning and the use of evidence in the argument. For example, You may need to consider what questionable assumptions underlie the thinking and what alternative explanations or counterexamples might weaken the conclusion. You can also discuss what sort of evidence would strengthen or refute the argument, what changes in the argument would make it more logically sound, and what, if anything, would help you better evaluate its conclusion. The following is the topic or prompt given to you.
The following appeared in a newspaper story giving advice about investments. As overall life expectancy continues to rise, the population of our country is growing increasingly older. For example, over 20% of the residents of one of our more populated regions are now at least 65 years old, and occupancy rates at resort hotels in that region declined significantly during the past 6 months. Because of these two related trends, a prudent investor would be well advised to sell interest in hotels and invest in hospitals and nursing homes instead.
These are just a few tips of advice from Ivyleague Career Services to give you a head start as you start your preparation on essay. Over the years, we have found that longer essays fetch comparatively more marks. So during your essay practice, break the 450-word barrier in each essay. Secondly, the 5-paragraph essay structure works best. The 5-paragraph essay structure means that you need a clear introductory paragraph, 3 body paragraphs and a clear concluding paragraph. 3 body paragraphs mean that in issue essays, you need to have 3 reasons supporting your argument, while in argument essays, you would to identify 3 assumptions that you are going to address in each body paragraph. Moreover, argument essays require a foundation in critical reasoning argumentation, where you can break an argument into its conclusion and reasons and then identify the underlying assumptions to make a cogent argument. So, learn critical reasoning argumentation to write a technically correct argument essay. You should practice writing essays, at least 15 to 20 essays, using the word processor component of GRE Power Prep 2 software, available at www.gre.org. Luckily, the complete pool of issue and argument essay topics has been made available by ETS, can be downloaded from www.gre.org. Depending on how much time you can spare, you can use some of these topics to write essays, and some topics can be used to prepare just the rough draft, so that you can get exposure to more topics. The second subject tested on the GRE is verbal reasoning. GRE has 2 sections of verbal reasoning. Each verbal reasoning section is for a duration of 30 minutes. In verbal reasoning sections, scores range from 130 to 170 in 1-point increments. Verbal reasoning questions appear in several formats. About half of the measure requires you to read passages and answer questions on those passages. Rest of the measure requires you to read, interpret, and complete existing sentences, groups of sentences, or paragraphs. Many, but not all, of the questions are standard multiple-choice questions, in which you are required to select a single correct answer. Others ask you to select multiple correct answers, and still others ask you to select a sentence from the passage. The number of choices varies depending on the type of question. Verbal reasoning sections test your skills on 3 different types of questions: 10 reading comprehension questions, 6 text completion questions, and 4 sentence equivalence questions. The verbal reasoning sections measure your ability to analyze and draw conclusions from discourse, reason from incomplete data, identify author's assumptions and/or perspective, understand multiple levels of meaning, such as literal, figurative, and author's intent, ability to select important points, distinguish major from minor or relevant points, summarize text, understand the structure of a text, ability to understand the meanings of words, sentences, and entire texts, understand relationships among words and among concepts, and the verbal reasoning section measures your ability to understand what you read and how you apply your reasoning skills. Both sections of verbal reasoning have approximately 10 reading comprehension questions each. The reading comprehension part involves answering questions based on a passage. This seems to be a familiar area, as we all have done a lot of practice of reading comprehension in our schools. but the reading comprehension done in schools is straightforward, while reading comprehension of GRE is pretty confusing and sneaky. Reading passages contain material from subject areas like social sciences, history, physical sciences, and business-related areas. Reading comprehension passages are accompanied by interpretive, applied, and inference questions. This section measures the following abilities: understanding words and statements in reading passages, understanding the logical relationships between significant points and concepts in the reading passages, drawing inferences from facts and statements in the reading passages, understanding and following the development of quantitative concepts as they are presented in verbal material, and understanding the author's point of view and their proposed arguments. There are three types of reading comprehension questions, in terms of design of the questions: multiple choice questions, where you select one answer choice. These are the traditional multiple choice questions with 5 answer choices of which you must select one. Multiple choice questions, where you select one or more answer choices. These provide 3 answer choices and ask you to select all that are correct. 1, 2 or all 3 of the answer choices may be correct. To gain credit for these questions, you must select all the correct answers, and only those. There is no credit for partially correct answers. Select in passage questions, where the question asks you to click on the sentence in the passage that meets a certain description. To answer the question, you choose one of the sentences and click on it. Clicking anywhere on a sentence will highlight it. These are the standard directions that you will see for reading comprehension questions when you take the GRE test. If you read them carefully and understand them clearly before going to sit for the test, you will not need to spend too much time reviewing them once you are at the test center and the test is underway. The directions say that each passage is followed by questions about its content. After reading a passage, select the best answer to each question among the 5 choices. Answer all questions following a passage on the basis of what the passage states or implies. Now, let us look at an example of a real verbal ability, reading comprehension question to get a better idea. I have marked the right answer as well. Please spend a moment on this. You can pause the video at this stage, so that you can take your own time to get familiar with this question type. This is a bit of initial advice from Ivyleague Career Services to handle reading comprehension questions. Do not extrapolate the passage information. Your answer has to match information in the passage. For every specific question, refer back to the passage and search for the answer and then eliminate objectionable options to reach your answer. For every general question, get a holistic idea of the passage, and then eliminate objectionable options to reach your answer. For every perception question, read a bigger chunk of the passage according to keywords, prepare your own half-baked answer, and then eliminate objectionable options to reach your answer. Both sections of verbal reasoning have approximately 10 text completions questions each. These are basically fill-in-the-blanks questions. You are given a passage composed of 1 to 5 sentences with 1, 2 or 3 blanks. There are 5 answer choices per blank on a single blank question and 3 answer choices in the case of 2 or 3 blank questions. The answer choices for different blanks function independently. That is, selecting one answer choice for one blank does not affect what answer choices you can select for another blank. This section measures the following abilities. Skilled readers do not simply absorb the information presented on the page. Instead, they maintain a constant attitude of interpretation and evaluation, reasoning from what they have read so far to create a picture of the whole and revising that picture as they go. Let's look at a question of text completion to understand this topic better. The standard directions for text completion questions will look like this. Each sentence below has 1 or more blanks, each blank indicating that something has been omitted. Beneath the sentence are 5 words for 1 blank questions and sets of 3 words for 2 and 3 blank questions. Choose the word or set of words for each blank that fits the meaning of the sentence as a whole. Remember, you have to click on the screen to choose your answer. Now, look at a one blank question of text completion. Check the directions and the layout of the interface. You can pause the video at this stage, if you need. Now, look at a two blank question of text completion. You can pause the video at this stage, if you need. Now, look at a three blank question of text completion. You can pause the video at this stage, if you need. ETS says that skilled readers do not simply absorb the information presented on the page. Instead, they maintain a constant attitude of interpretation and evaluation, reasoning from what they have read so far to create a picture of the whole and revising that picture as they go. Based on this tested skill, you need to work on the following: active reading. When you are reading the given sentence or passage in a text completion question, read it with utmost concentration and involvement. Keep talking to yourself about what's going on in the sentence. Understand whether the information is supporting an argument or a person, is it giving a list of things, etc. Identify clues and triggers in the sentence. Every sentence has a clue, which indicates what should be plugged into the blank. Moreover, certain words and punctuation marks can act as a trigger to inform us whether the word in blank should be similar to the clue or opposite to it. Direction of the sentence. The triggers in a sentence give us an idea about the direction a sentence is taking in a certain part. Tone of the author. Keep an eye on whether the author of sentence is positive, negative or neutral about an issue, thing or a person in the sentence. Both sections of verbal reasoning have approximately 4 sentence equivalence questions. These questions look similar to the text completion questions. Sentence equivalence questions consist of a single sentence containing one blank, and 6 answer choices. These questions require you to select 2 of the answer choices. You receive no credit for partially correct answers. This means the 2 correct answers will be synonyms. Because both words create sentences that are equivalent, both have the same meaning. Let us look at a question of sentence equivalence to understand this topic better. Directions for sentence equivalence questions will look like this. Select the 2 answer choices that, when used to complete the sentence, fit the meaning of the sentence as a whole and produce completed sentences that are alike in meaning. Remember, you have to click on the screen to choose your answer. Now, look at a question of sentence equivalence. Check the directions and the layout of the interface. You can pause the video at this stage, if you need. Sentence equivalence questions are not just looking for 2 synonymous answers. Most of the questions have 2 answers which are not synonymous but contextually give the same meaning to the overall sentence. For example, original and innovative may be the correct synonymous answers to a question, but worsened and increased don't look synonymous. Sentence equivalence questions neither test synonyms nor contextual meaning of sentences, but do test a hybrid of the 2, making the question more difficult. So the skills being tested on sentence equivalence questions are contextual vocabulary, synonymous expression of sentence sense by different choice of words, and making sense out of synonymous expression by using contextual vocabulary. Advice for sentence equivalence: improve your vocabulary so that you can understand each word and have a better sense of contextual meaning of words in sentences. Look at sentence holistically to check whether the 2 chosen words give the same sense to the sentence. Always look for synonyms. But, if you can't find any synonyms amongst the answer choices, given you know the definition of every word, then the correct answers can be non-synonyms. If you do not know a few of the words, do not just pick 2 words because they create synonymous sentences. Choose a word you do not know, and match it with one of the answer choices that work. If the above sounds like a gamble, that's because approaching sentence equivalence, in terms of guessing, is so complex, at least compared to the old GRE's 1 in 5 answer choices. Essentially, you will want to do anything to increase the odds of guessing correctly. And, to do so, the steps above will be your most helpful strategy. The third subject tested on the GRE is quantitative reasoning. GRE has two sections of quantitative reasoning. Each quantitative reasoning section is for a duration of 35 minutes. In quantitative reasoning sections, scores range from 130 to 170 in 1-point increments. Questions are presented in 3 formats: 9 problem solving, 8 quantitative comparison, and 3 data interpretation questions. The quantitative reasoning sections of the GRE measures the ability to reason quantitatively, solve quantitative problems, interpret graphic data, and analyze and use information given in a problem. Questions require knowledge of topics such as arithmetic, algebra, geometry, and data interpretation. The quantitative reasoning section includes an on-screen calculator. This is a big help on the quantitative part. Test takers must do their math work out by hand using a dry erase pen and laminated graph paper, which are given to them at the testing center. The computer-delivered GRE General Test includes an on-screen calculator for use in the quantitative reasoning section to reduce the emphasis on computation and to focus more attention on reasoning skills. This is an image of the on-screen calculator provided during the GRE quantitative reasoning section. As you can see, the on-screen calculator has 4 functions: addition, subtraction, multiplication and division, and a square root. The availability of a calculator definitely means greater accuracy in calculating answers can be achieved, but the mere presence of a calculator does not mean that you do unnecessary calculation, because that will stop you from interpreting data without calculating. This ability to interpret data without calculating is an integral skill needed to attempt many questions with accuracy and in a shorter amount of time. Both sections of quantitative reasoning have approximately 10 problem-solving questions. Problem-solving questions are based on arithmetic, algebra, geometry, and data interpretation. There is no trigonometry or calculus on the GRE. Problem-solving questions are basically designed to test the ability to reason quantitatively and solve quantitative problems. In these questions, you may be asked to select one answer, one or more answers, or may be asked to make a numeric entry in the space provided. So, in terms of design of questions, 3 broad designs are present. Firstly, multiple choice questions where you have to select one answer choice. Secondly, multiple choice questions where you have to select one or more answer choices, and numeric entry questions where you have to type in the answer. Now, let us look at a few questions of problem solving. Check the directions and the layout of the interface. You can pause the video at this stage, if you need. This is a geometry question. Another time, speed and distance question. And a question based on exponents. Though overt skills or openly tested skills on the whole of quantitative reasoning, or for that matter in any mathematics question from school and college exams, remains the same, that you need to have knowledge of basic mathematical concepts and formulas, the ability to apply mathematical concepts and formulas to solve problems, and the ability to calculate accurately and arrive at the perfect answer. Still, there are some covert skills or hidden skills being tested. For example, the ability to understand the question and attempt it by a method that needs less time and calculations and still ensures accuracy. You need to have a certain sense of mathematics, so that you can visualize problems, especially geometrical ones. Ability to understand what data has been provided and what data is the question asking for, and finally, the ability to decide whether calculations are really needed or can the problem be solved without calculations. On problem-solving questions, always use a 4-step procedure, where Step 1 is to read the question carefully to understand the problem. Be clear about what data has been given in the question and what is needed to be found. Step 2 is to decide on a strategy for solving the problem. Remember, there are various ways to solve a problem, but the method that takes less calculation, less time, and still ensures a perfect answer is called a strategy. There may be no shortcuts for every type of question on the GRE, but there is always a specific strategy for every question on GRE. Step 3. Decide whether you need the calculator. Remember that the quantitative reasoning questions, specifically the problem-solving questions, are not designed to require lengthy computations. Moreover, by not using the calculator, you will be free to focus on interpreting numbers and data and using your critical thinking skills. Though, a calculator can be an asset for the occasional computation that a few questions require. So, if possible, decide against using a calculator. While solving a problem-solving question, if the method you are thinking of involves a lot of computation and calculation, then rethink whether the question can be solved by another method that does not require so much of calculation. Step 4 is to check your answer. When you arrive at an answer, you should check that it is reasonable and computationally correct. Have you answered the question that was asked? Is your answer reasonable in the context of the question? Checking that an answer is reasonable can be as simple as recalling a basic mathematical fact and checking whether your answer is consistent with that fact. For example, the answer to a question asking for probability of an event must be between 0 and 1, inclusive, and the area of a geometric figure must be positive. In other cases, you can use estimation to check that your answer is reasonable. For example, if your solution involves adding three numbers, each of which is between 100 and 200, estimating the sum tells you that the sum must be between 300 and 600. Did you make a computational mistake in arriving at your answer? Or did you make a key entry error using the calculator? You can check for errors in each step in your solution. Questions of this type ask you to compare two quantities, quantity A and quantity B, and then determine which of the following statements describes the comparison, whether quantity A is greater or quantity B is greater. Or are the two quantities equal? And at times, the relationship cannot be determined from the information given, as the data is insufficient. This section measures the following abilities: ability to reason quickly and accurately about the relative sizes of two quantities, and ability to perceive that, in some cases, not enough information is provided to make such a decision, ability to understand the nature of a complex question format, ability to engage in logical and numerical analysis, ability to recall and apply mathematical principles in a problem-solving setting, ability to answer a series of mathematics-based problems under time constraints. Let's look at a question of quantitative comparison to understand this topic better. The standard directions always are: compare quantity A and quantity B, using additional information cantered above the two quantities if such information is given, and select one of the following four answer choices. You mark option A as answer if quantity A is greater. You mark option B as answer if quantity B is greater, or you mark option C as answer if the two quantities are equal, or you end up marking option D as answer if the relationship cannot be determined from the information given. Also, take care that a symbol that appears more than once in a question has the same meaning throughout the question. Now, let us look at a question of quantitative comparison. Check the directions and the layout of the interface. You can pause the video at this stage, if you need. This question is based on geometry. This is a bit of advice from Ivyleague Career Services as you start your initial preparation for quantitative comparison questions. First of all, become familiar with the answer choices to avoid silly mistakes. Quantitative comparison questions always have the same answer choices, so get to know them, especially the last choice. The relationship cannot be determined from the information given. Never select this last choice if it is clear that the values of the two quantities can be determined by computation. Also, if you determine that one quantity is greater than the other, make sure you carefully select the corresponding choice so as not to reverse the first two choices. Avoid unnecessary computations. Don't waste time performing needless computations in order to compare the two quantities. Simplify, transform or estimate one or both of the given quantities only as much as is necessary to compare them. Remember that geometric figures are not necessarily drawn to scale. Do assume that the geometric figures are drawn to scale. For example, Unless and until clear information is given, do not assume that a triangle that seems to have equal sides has to be an equilateral triangle. Redraw geometric figures. If any aspect of a given geometric figure is not fully determined, try to redraw the figure, keeping those aspects that are completely determined by the given information fixed but changing the aspects of the figure that are not determined. Examine the results. What variations are possible in the relative lengths of line segments or measures of angles? Plug in numbers. If one or both of the quantities are algebraic expressions, you can substitute easy numbers for the variables and compare the resulting quantities in your analysis. Consider all kinds of appropriate numbers before you give an answer. For example, 0, positive and negative numbers, small and large numbers, fractions and decimals. If you see that quantity A is greater than quantity B in one case and quantity B is greater than quantity A in another case, choose the relationship cannot be determined from the information given. Simplify the comparison. If both quantities are algebraic or arithmetic expressions and you cannot easily see a relationship between them, you can try to simplify the comparison. Try a step-by-step simplification that is similar to the steps involved when you solve. Both sections of quantitative reasoning have approximately 3 data interpretation questions. Data interpretation questions are based on tabulated information, bar graphs and circle graphs, as well as other graphical displays of data. This section measures the following abilities: ability to extract the correct data from tables, graphs and charts, ability to manipulate extracted data mathematically to find the correct answer, understanding and following the development of quantitative concepts as they are presented in graphical format. In this question of data interpretation, check the layout of the interface. You can pause the video at this stage, if you need. This is a bit of advice from Ivyleague Career Services as you start your initial preparation for data interpretation questions. Scan the data presentation briefly to see what it is about, but do not spend time studying all of the information in detail. Focus on those aspects of the data that are necessary to answer the questions. Pay attention to the axes and scales of graphs, to the units of measurement or orders of magnitude, such as billions, that are given in the titles, labels and legends, and to any notes that clarify the data. Bar graphs and circle graphs, as well as other graphical displays of data, are drawn to scale, so you can read or estimate data visually from such graphs. For example, you can use the relative sizes of bars or sectors to compare the quantities that they represent, but be aware of broken scales and of bars that do not start at 0. The questions are to be answered only on the basis of the data presented, everyday facts, such as the number of days in a year, and your knowledge of mathematics. Do not make use of specialized information you may recall from other sources about the particular context on which the questions are based unless the information can be derived from the data presented. GRE became a MST or a multi-stage test in fall of 2011. It is different from other tests, and we at Ivyleague have some useful insights into why the GRE has been revised. Firstly, the GRE may have been structured to look more like the GMAT, the test for entry into business school, so that more business schools accept GRE scores, because the skills tested are so similar. The revised GRE contains more high-level reasoning skills, similar question types, including critical reasoning and argumentation questions, and data inference questions drawn from tables and graphs. Secondly, the GRE scoring scale did not match well with percentile scores. The new scoring scale is designed to align the scaled scores with percentile scores. The content and scoring scale aren't the only things ETS tweaked for the revised GRE. The old GRE featured a CAT or a computer adaptive test that varied the difficulty of the question based upon how you answered the preceding one. The computer adapted to your answers. Its big disadvantage was that you couldn't go back to change your answer. Not so with the revised GRE. You'll be able to move about freely within the section of the test you're currently working on, and you can mark questions you are unsure of and return to them when you have time. This will more closely approximate the experience of a traditional exam. The whole idea is to make the process more student-friendly and more natural, and also less unpleasant. Well, to the extent that that's possible for a standardized test. The biggest changes to the structure of the test are mechanical in nature. Let's start with them. A MST, or multi-stage test, is a computer-based test that you take at a special test center at a time you schedule. You're probably already at least a little bit familiar with the old test design, the CAT. The highlights of some of the key MST features of the new GRE test design are: the test adapts one section at a time, you can return to previous questions within a section, an on-screen calculator is provided for the quantitative reasoning sections, mark and review buttons are available, scored on a scale from 130 to 170, a CAT adapts to your performance, making the old GRE quite different from the traditional paper and pencil tests you've probably taken all your academic life. On a test with a CAT design, instead of having a predetermined mixture of basic, medium, and hard questions, the computer selects questions for you based on how well you are doing. The first question may be of medium difficulty. If you get it right, the second question may be a little harder. If you get it wrong, the second will be more basic. If you keep getting questions right, the test will get harder and harder. If you make some mistakes, the test adjusts and starts giving you easier problems, but if you answer them correctly, it will go back to the hard ones. The idea was for the test to give you enough questions to ensure that scores were not based on luck. If you got one hard question right, you might just have been lucky, but if you got 10 hard questions right, then luck had little to do with it. 50. The test was self-adjusting and self-correcting. Because of this format, the CAT was very different structurally from a paper and pencil test. After the first problem, every new problem was determined by, among other factors, how you answered the prior problem. That meant you couldn't return to a question once you'd answered it. Once you answered a question, it became part of your score, for better or worse. On the revised GRE, instead of questions, it is the sections that are adaptive. Out of the two sections of verbal ability, your performance on the first section will determine the difficulty level of the second section. The same happens with quantitative reasoning. The revised GRE allows you to move around within the section you're working on. You can use the mark and review buttons to tag questions. This way, if you are struggling with an answer or you just can't concentrate on a challenging passage, you can mark a question for review, and come back to it later when you know you've answered at least a few other questions correctly and you have regained the confidence to tackle the passage. Questions that you have marked will appear with check marks next to them. At any point during the section, you will have the option to look at the review screen for that section and see how many questions you have left. It also helps you to budget your time. If you see that you're almost halfway through your allotted time, but have answered only a few questions, you'll know to pick up the pace. At first, you will get a lot of mileage from developing a standard strategy of approaching questions based on their level of difficulty. It won't be spelled out for you explicitly, but as you progress through the questions, you should have a good idea of how you're doing. If you've practiced a lot on the questions and test preparation materials to study, it will be even easier to gain a pretty clear sense of the difficulty level of your questions and to eliminate answer choices accordingly. Secondly, try as best you can to approach the exam as you would a paper-based one. After all, that is the idea of the MST. It should feel more comfortable and familiar, given that you can move about freely within a section. Use this to your advantage. If a question looks too daunting, you can skip it and come back to it. You can also use the mark button to indicate to yourself that you should come back and review your answer, if you have time at the end of that section. You can do this whether or not you answered the question. This way, you can better organize your time by keeping track of which questions you are done with, and which ones need a second look. Finally, the timer in the corner can work to your advantage, but if you find yourself looking at it so frequently that it becomes a distraction, you should turn it off for 10 or 15 minutes and try to refocus your attention on the test. You may be concerned about losing track of time, but if you are so distracted by it that you can't get through the questions, it will be just as damaging to your score as will running out of time. As with a traditional, paper and pencil test, you don't want to get hung up on clock management. Now let us learn how to navigate the GRE MST. Let's preview the primary computer functions that you will use to move around on the MST. The ETS calls them testing tools. They're basically tabs that you can click with your mouse to navigate through the section. The following screen is typical for a multi-stage test. The Exit Section button allows you to exit the section before the time is up. Try not to end the section early. Use any extra time to review any particular problems you flagged or felt concerned about. Review button will allow you to view your progress on all the questions you have looked at so far within the section you're working on. The items you have marked for review will have a check mark next to them. The chart on the screen will also have a column indicating whether or not you have answered a question. Most important is Mark button, which allows you to mark a question for review later. The question will have a check mark next to it in the review section. The Help button leads to directions and assistance from the tutorial. But beware, the test clock won't pause just because you click on Help. The Back button allows you to return to previous questions within the section. Note that this allows you to go back to questions only in the section you're currently working on. The Next button is to be hit when you want to move on to the next question. You cannot proceed until you have hit this button. The Calculator button is available on the quantitative reasoning section only. The Calculator button opens the on-screen calculator for you on quantitative reasoning sections. It's a pretty basic calculator, and the questions are more conceptual in nature, but it still should help you to avoid basic computational errors. Note that you can click on the Transfer Display button in the calculator to transfer your answer into a numeric entry box. The Time button, which is not in the picture here, can be clicked to turn on the time display at the top of the screen on or off. When you have 5 minutes left in a section, the clock flashes, and the display changes from hours and minutes to hours, minutes, and seconds. The Quit Test button, which is not in the picture here, ends the test prematurely. Do not use this button unless you want all of your scores cancelled and your test invalidated. You get 6 scores on the GRE, a scaled score on analytical writing assessment in the range of 0 to 6 and a percentile score in the range of 0 to 99. A scaled score on quantitative reasoning in the range of 130 to 170 and a percentile score in the range of 0 to 99. A scaled score on verbal reasoning in the range of 130 to 170 and a percentile score in the range of 0 to 99. This is a sample of what the GRE scorecard would look like. It has a graphical representation of percentile status and the numerical scores. To get the best possible score on GRE, after doing your hard work, you will have to get comfortable with the new format of this exam, the MST format. Attempt many simulated GRE tests to understand the test dynamics. Realize that, on an exam, we make more silly mistakes. So identify the reasons behind your extra mistakes and work on them. Develop a longer attention span and greater stamina to handle this long exam. Mentally prepare yourself for the test. During the exam, use the breaks fruitfully. Actually, the test paper of the GRE is researched and designed in such a manner that when students take the test, their scores follow a bell curve, where a very small number of students get a score of 130 or a 170 on the GRE, but a maximum number of students get a 50 percentile score of 150 on the bell curve corresponding. As the question paper has 5 levels of questions, is adaptive and uses a certain algorithm to ensure that the bell curve is maintained. Let's understand, how can the ETS ensure that 50% of the students will get a score of 150, even before a particular GRE has been taken? Since 1949, when GRE was started, all students did an experimental section. They did not know which section was the experimental, and their performance on it had no impact on their score. Within the testing industry, these questions are called pre-test, and the questions that count toward a student's score are called operational. When students take the GRE, suppose 95% of students get a particular experimental question incorrect, then it will get assigned as the hardest or level 5 question. Similarly, if 95% of students get a particular question correct, then it will get assigned as the easiest or level 1 question. On the other hand, if 50% of students get a particular question incorrect, then it will get assigned as the medium or level 3 question. This mechanism ensures the College Board already knows before a single student has taken a GRE paper that 50% of the students will land up with a score of 150. This mechanism is what you need to beat and fall into the desired green region of the bell curve. On the present GRE also, to allow for pre-testing, students taking the GRE will attempt an experimental section. This could be a quantitative reasoning or verbal reasoning section. If you are an Indian student, then you are categorized as an ESL student by the admission committees, that is English as secondary language student. The language tests have been designed to measure the English language proficiency of such non-native English speakers. Admission committees officials are usually concerned whether a non-native English-speaking students would be able to excel in an international English environment. To clarify this issue, admission committees need scores on any one of the 3 tests, TOEFL, IELTS or PTE. At times, an exemption to this English proficiency test requirement is possible. The GRE subject tests are achievement tests that measure your knowledge of a particular field of study. Show what you know about a specific subject and graduate schools will take notice. The subject tests can help you stand out from other applicants by emphasizing your knowledge and skill level in a specific area. Each subject test is intended for students who have an undergraduate major or extensive background in one of these 7 disciplines: biochemistry, cell and molecular biology, biology, chemistry, literature in English, mathematics, physics, psychology. GRE subject test scores are used by admissions or fellowship panels of some colleges and universities to supplement your undergraduate records, recommendation letters and other qualifications for graduate level study. Some subject tests yield subscores that can indicate the strengths and weaknesses in an individual student's preparation and may also be useful for guidance and placement purposes. There is a lot of flexibility for you in planning and taking the GRE, as GRE is conducted 6 times in a week, in several time slots of the working day. Please confirm the exact test and registration dates from the official website www.gre.org. This gives you a lot of flexibility for you in planning your GRE date and getting a good score. You should decide on scheduling and preparing for GRE based on 4 parameters. The GRE tests a lot of skills learnt in school, so ideally you should take the GRE while the concepts are still fresh. Say, while you are in the 2nd year of graduation and do not have too much pressure of your final year exams. Taking the GRE while you are in the 2nd year of graduation also takes care of the 2nd parameter. In case you are not satisfied with your GRE scores, you can still take the exam a 2nd time. On an average, students improve their scores on GRE by 20 points on the 2nd attempt. But the biggest parameter for planning the GRE is that you should have enough free time to prepare for the GRE wholeheartedly. Being an aptitude test, practice makes you perfect, so don't leave any stone unturned. Moreover, you should have ample time between the GRE and admission deadlines of colleges so that you can select colleges based on your GRE score and complete your admissions dockets for various colleges that you will apply to. There are several reasons why students who are supposedly good at English and mathematics in school have a problem in scoring high on the GRE despite doing hard work. The first reason is that GRE is an aptitude test. Students are used to preparing for school and college exams which are heavily focused on knowledge and using the right procedure. Students make the mistake of thinking that working hard on conceptual knowledge and practicing a lot of difficult questions will get them good scores. If this is an IQ test, then you already have a good amount of intelligence, and this intelligence is measured by the number of mistakes you make. Moreover, IQ tests have questions with confusing language which encourages you to make mistakes. So the best way is to realize which kind of mistakes are you making and not to repeat those mistakes. This brings in the fastest score improvements. The second reason for low scores on GRE is that questions on GRE are conceptually easy but have confusing language. For example, in school and college exams, a difficult question of mathematics would test difficult concepts and would involve difficult and long calculations. Even a difficult question will not have confusing language to trick you, and it will be very clear after reading the question as to what is it asking for. Moreover, half the marks are for getting the right answer and half the marks are for following the right steps leading to the answer. So, when you see a mathematics question, you just jump into the question and furiously calculate till you get an answer right up to 2 points of decimals. Now the problem in an aptitude test is that a difficult mathematics question will test you for easy concepts and less calculations, but the language of the question will be so confusing that most of the students would think that the question is asking for X while the question may actually be asking for Y as the answer. The third reason for low scores on GRE is that GRE is an American exam with an American context and has been designed for a typical American student. So some biases against a non-American student do creep into this exam. You need to be aware of these issues. Benchmarking of performance can help in identifying the necessary rules that Indian students have not been taught in their schools and helps in realizing the need for test-taking techniques. Indian students need to be taught all the rocket science behind the questions. Some things are completely new, say parallel construction in American grammar, the objective way needed in critical reasoning, or transposition in coordinate geometry, and evidence-based reading comprehension, which are not taught at all in Indian schools. Some American concepts clash with whatever has been taught in Indian schools and colleges. For example, rules of subjunctive mood may clash with subject-verb agreement rules taught in our schools. Still, there are some concepts taught to us in our schools which also tested on these exams, so they may just need a revision. This has to be followed by application of concepts on questions. The fourth reason is that most of the test-taking techniques you learned and mastered back in school do not work on the GRE because of change of format of the exam. Back in school or college, when you got the question paper at the beginning of an exam, you browsed through the whole question paper and decide what will you attempt first. If you get stuck on a question, leave it and attempt it later. If you got a question wrong, attempt it again. Attempt the paper with a frenzy and finish off as much as possible. And everything in the paper carries marks. But on the GRE, you can work only on one designated section during a time slot. You can't return to previous sections or check later sections. And there is a whole set of experimental questions which don't fetch you marks. This is where our organization, Ivyleague, comes in, to solve all of your anticipated problems. When Ivyleague Career Services started helping students in 1994, we realized that there is a huge gap between education provided by educational institutes, such as schools and colleges, and the expertise needed to excel in competitive exams, careers and life. Ivyleague Career Services helps students prepare for aptitude tests such as SAT, GMAT, GRE, and IIM-CAT. We also guide students in the complex application process for admission to premier global MBA programs and undergraduate and postgraduate programs in the U.S., through our admission consulting programs. Actually, the standardized syllabus followed in schools and colleges serves its need excellently well for the educational purpose for which it is designed. Aptitude tests such as GRE require not only a different set of specific knowledge and its corresponding application but also a certain attitude and approach which is needed to handle the academically challenging courses and the future careers based on them. At Ivyleague, we know that aptitude tests such as GRE are designed by experts in psychometrics, a super specialized area of psychology, and not by teachers of English and mathematics. So all our test prep programs are designed by psychologists who are experts in psychometrics. We do not want to reinvent the wheel again. So we research the best of test prep programs available in the world and their pros and cons. And then we modify our programs according to class needs by the teachers who deliver the programs according to the needs of the students. Our psychometric experts know the tests inside out and help you beat them. We found two types of test prep programs for GRE available in India, those offered by American test prep organizations and others offered by homegrown Indian mom and pop joints. The American test prep programs are designed for an American student and they work best for an American student. All of the aptitude tests such as GRE have been designed on the American syllabus which an American student has just studied in school or in college, so an American student does not really need to study these concepts. As a result, the American test prep programs do not focus on teaching the tested knowledge part but rather focus on certain test prep strategies and tricks which can help in improvement of a weak or mediocre student's score. A typical American student wants the greatest ROI, or return on investment, so he is not used to working hard but wants a certain score improvement with least efforts. But good and hard-working Indian students do not see a worthwhile score improvement in these American programs as they lack the basic knowledge being tested. The Indian test prep programs do not focus on test prep strategies and tricks but unnecessarily teach whatever English and math they know. The teachers of Indian test prep programs do not even know that the exams are not focused on the English and math which they are teaching, but the tests just use the language of English and math to design questions. Students joining such institutes work very hard but are unable to get a good score improvement because these students still do not understand the dynamics of the test and have not been trained in test-taking techniques. A lot of such problems can be avoided by an extensive teacher training and certification program, but Indian test prep institutes don't have the talent needed to conduct them. American institutes have started franchises in India and train Indian teachers to facilitate the programs, but certification and jobs are given to anyone who doesn't ask for a higher salary package. Have you heard the famous saying, "When you pay peanuts, you get only monkeys"? And such institutes have a lot of monkeys playing around with careers of students. The solution is in realizing the background and study behaviors of Indian students and benchmarking their performance according to the specific needs of the exam. Indian students are very hard-working and do hard work with the single target of the perfect score. Moreover, Indian students struggle with these standardized American exams such as SAT, GMAT and GRE as they are not familiar with American English and American context of the exams. Benchmarking of performance helps in identifying the necessary rules that Indian students have not been taught in their schools and helps in realizing the need for test-taking techniques. Indian students need to be taught all the rocket science behind the questions. Some things are completely new, say parallel construction in American grammar, the objective way needed in critical reasoning, or transposition in coordinate geometry, and evidence-based reading comprehension, which are not taught at all in Indian schools. Some American concepts clash with whatever has been taught in Indian schools and colleges. For example, rules of subjunctive mood may clash with subject-verb agreement rules taught in our schools. Still, there are some concepts taught to us in our schools which also tested on these exams, so they may just need a revision. This has to be followed by application of concepts on questions. This is where strategies for handling questions become important, as the multiple choice pattern and other designs of questions need specific strategies to avoid silly avoidable mistakes. This brings a quantum jump in scores. Now you attempt a lot of practice exercises to polish your skills. After you have practiced on a lot of questions, and know how to crack them impeccably, it may still not translate into a perfect score. Because during the actual exam, performance anxiety encourages you to make mistakes. Moreover, you may not have the mental stamina to use your brain for a 4-hour-long test. Simulated exams or mock tests are valuable tools to understand what's missing in your preparation, and, later, to realize that if you know everything, what changes you still need to make in the way you handle yourself during the real exam to get an optimum score. Mock exams do a final polishing and a student understands the test dynamics. Teachers are part of the solution as they facilitate the delivery of test prep programs. They need to be masters of the tested subjects, know how to teach the subjects, empathize with students to understand what confusion students can have in the subjects, and keep the learning comprehensive and interesting enough so that a student can meet all the demands of the test. The hardest part for us at Ivyleague was to find the most efficient academicians in the test prep industry. We were surprised to find that the country's and the world's leading test prep organizations were the weakest in the most important part of delivery of their test prep programs, teachers. Because of impractical scaling up of their operations, teacher quality was seriously compromised. Any fresh graduate who would not be thrown out of classroom by the students had a confirmed job with the test prep institute. Now the teacher learned from his own mistakes. After teaching for about 5 years, when he would become somewhat better, he would actually become too expensive for the test prep institute to continue. This teacher would move out of the institute or be asked to leave because he would start suggesting changes to the test prep program, and these changes would come in the way of scaling up and markups. We bent over backwards to accommodate the most experienced faculty members to design and teach our programs. All our teachers have an average of 15 years of work experience. But apart from gray hairs, the deciding factor in selecting faculty members has been their excellent feedback and high standards of teaching ability. Another part of the solution is an effective study material and program design. We believe that the classroom teaching and study material have to comprehensively drive home concepts. Practice exercises should diagnose gaps in learning and give enough practice to become perfect, and have mock tests to master test dynamics. At other institutes, scaled-up operations mean that even when a test prep institute has practice material and realizes that students need practice material to work hard, still more practice exercises cannot be given as it would cost money. At Ivyleague, we continuously prepare and polish up our practice material so that we can give a student as much of practice as needed to become the best. While designing our study material, we have only the needs and wants of a student in mind. This translates into a study material that effectively drives home every concept, and apart from a mandatory set of practice material, there is enough practice material for a very hard-working student who doesn't want any stone unturned. So, we believe that an ideal test preparation should entail the following. The GRE is a modified IQ test or an intelligence test, and even before you start your preparation, you have intelligence. Moreover, you already have an exposure of English language and you have done a lot of mathematics till high school. So you will definitely be good at certain areas tested on GRE, while you may be rusty or weak at other areas. So, as a first step, we benchmark your performance by subjecting you to a simulated or mock test before starting your preparation. This should be followed by an objective critical analysis from an expert teacher to comment on issues which may not be in public domain. This helps in giving a realistic idea about the level of hard work needed and timelines to be maintained during preparation. Now, find the right set of books and a teacher who can make your learning challenging, comprehensive, engaging and fun. Learning and mastering the specific strategies and procedures to handle each type of question appearing on the real exam. This also entails identifying each type of question that appears on the real exam and knowing how to crack it by using its specific strategy and procedure. Now you understand all concepts and rules tested on the real exam and apply them on a certain number of real exam questions until you become perfect. Clearing the concepts with your teacher on each and every question, in which you make a mistake and cannot realize what went wrong. Identifying concepts that you tend to forget. And identifying questions where you tend to make mistakes. Then, practice questions under a time constraint to decrease your response time to handle questions. Your accuracy dips down as you work faster, so work on it and take progressive tests having multiple topics. After you have attained a certain level of expertise, start taking mock exams to understand test dynamics and how a complete exam affects your accuracy and performance. Issues such as lower accuracy when you attempt a multiple subject and multiple topic test, shorter attention span, low stamina to use brain actively for 4 hours, test anxiety and nervousness, etc. should be identified. Take more tests and address whatever problems you have. Keep doing mid-course corrections in your preparation based on mock test performance and analysis. Be clear about the dynamics of the test day and be completely prepared for it, in terms of what to wear, proctoring procedures, test center procedures, documents to carry to the test center, what to do if you suffer a test irregularity, mandatory breaks during the test and how you can use them to your advantage, what to eat or drink during the break, etc. Mock tests are the final step in your preparation and they can have a toll on your nerves. So, keep yourself cool, upbeat and objective. Visualize yourself responding to case studies at your dream college, when you get bugged or tired. Hence, we at Ivyleague Career Services have tried to design classroom-based programs and one-on-one personalized attention programs which address these issues faced by students. We start with a diagnostic test or mock test to benchmark a student's performance and present position. The student receives a detailed analysis of performance to a subject, topic and question level. Once the program starts, students attempt a pre-class assignment to increase familiarity with a topic and understand the challenges involved. This is to pre-prime you up for the coming class. You don't have to learn the stuff in the pre-class assignment. Instead, you have to just read through it once to get familiar with the next topic to be taught in class. Another benefit of the pre-class assignment is that when the class starts, all the students in the batch are at the same threshold level from which the teacher can take things further easily. Now, the teacher teaches the topic in class and teaches every concept and sub-concept that has been tested on the actual exam previously. Class teaching is kept completely comprehensive, so if a topic such as inequalities in quantitative reasoning involves 9 concepts and 14 ways in which the questions can ultimately test you for inequalities, then we will teach you all of this stuff in class and make you practice it thoroughly through practice questions. Students are encouraged to take extensive notes during the initial concept teaching. Then teacher shows how to apply each concept on questions that test that concept. Now students attempt a certain number of questions in front of the teacher to identify any problems that still remain, and these problems of the students are solved. The class ends with detailed written assigned homework of 2 types: questions to check knowledge of concepts tested on the exam, which have been taught in class, and questions to test application of concepts, real exam questions from the official sources. We follow a closed feedback loop mechanism to train you. We wouldn't just be happy that we have taught you the right stuff, but we will ensure that you have understood and learned it well. We would like to be a bit strict here, and we will also check what you have learned and why are you not getting a 100% score. So the program has a lot of written homework, which is checked by teachers. Now, after the class, once a student is at home, the student revises class notes and has to attempt stuff from a practice workbook. The workbook has 3 parts: reiterated important concepts, to be revised and learned, concept tests, to identify whether you have learned all the concepts, and concept application tests, to check whether you know how to apply concepts on questions on each topic to identify whether a certain concept is not clear or application of the concept is not perfect. The workbook is submitted to the teacher, who carefully checks the homework and provides remedial actions. The remedial actions can be teaching the concept again, more classwork in front of the teacher, and more homework. Your teacher clears the concepts on each and every question, in which you make a mistake but you are unable to realize what went wrong. In this manner each topic, concept and question type gets perfected. Now a student has to attempt practice questions under time constraints and has to decrease the average time taken per question. Attempting questions faster results in more silly mistakes also, so a greater focus under time constraints is the learning of this stage of preparation. As more and more topics are taught, a student gets ready for the next level of learning, multiple topic tests or progressive tests. A student needs to develop the ability to attempt a jumbled bunch of questions, random in terms of subjects, topics, concepts and difficulty levels, the way it appears on the real exam. This helps you to learn how to switch your mode of answering questions from one type to another. Say a problem-solving question designed on a word problem of time, speed and distance may need a different mode as compared to a plug-in question based on permutation and combination. The last level of learning happens by seriously taking a series of simulated exams or mock tests. The mock tests will point out the new test dynamics at play. Now, despite knowing how to solve each type of question, still under test conditions, you make a greater number of silly mistakes because of 4 reasons. These are test anxiety, lower attention span, less stamina, and unfamiliarity with the newer format of exam. Let's understand these 4 issues and their solutions. A. Test anxiety. Just the thought that we are being tested causes butterflies in our stomach. This performance anxiety affects your scores badly. So attempt as many simulated exams as possible so that you become immune to anxiety. B. Lower attention span. You have an attention span of 15 to 30 minutes. And normally you can comfortably use your brain at full potential for this short span only, but this is a 4-hour exam, so after the initial half an hour, you feel like taking a break to perform better later, but you are not permitted to do this. To increase your attention span, get into the habit of using your brain continuously for longer stretches of time, without even taking a moment's break during your study. Learn to study without distractions such as your cell phone ringing or anyone barging into your room while you are studying. C. Stamina. After an hour or 2 of testing, your brain gets tired so questions seem more difficult to understand and solve, leading to more mistakes. Here also the solution is to study for longer stretches of time, without taking breaks. Remember you are preparing for a marathon and not a 100-meter dash. D. Taking an exam on a new format is uncomfortable to a lot of students. You have always done subjective and knowledge-heavy tests, so attempting the GRE, which is an objective MCQ test, works against your scores. The solution is a greater number of simulated or mock exams, 15 to be precise. This gives you a grip on GRE testing and makes you immune to the pitfalls. Moreover, analysis of each test by the student followed by analysis by the teacher helps to identify the gray areas that need focus. We would even like to handhold you during the real exam, but that would be unethical and is not permitted. Luckily, you would be so prepared for the real exam that you won't need us during the real exam. Based on specific requirements of our students, we have designed 2 programs to help students effectively, a classroom integrated program and a one-on-one personalized tutoring program. The classroom integrated program may be recommended for you if you have 3 months to prepare for the test and you can attend classes at our classroom locations or learning centers. On the other hand, a one-on-one personalized tutoring program may be recommended for you if you have less time in hand to prepare for the GRE, say 1 or 2 months to prepare for the test. If you want complete personalized attention with real-time monitoring of your progress by the teacher. If you want to learn at your own pace, fast or slow. If you are a high achiever and are ready to work hard to get the best possible score on the test. Or, if you cannot attend classes on a regular basis and need more flexibility of time. In order to register for the GRE, you will have to go online at www.gre.org. Check the available dates and test center and book up your test. Now, If you are interested in taking help from Ivyleague to prepare for the GRE or to handhold you in the complex admission process for the Ivy League colleges in the U.S., then send us an email at mail@ivyleague.us.com. In your mail, give details about what you are dreaming of and what preparation have you done so far. You can attach an updated resume and also mention everything about yourself that can help us give you more informed advice. Also write down your personal cell phone number and a convenient time so that we can arrange one of our senior faculty members to have a discussion with you and advise you accordingly. If you want more information about GRE and its role in the admissions process for MS, MBA and PhD from these sources, you can check official GRE website www.gre.com, or check our official website www.ivyleague.us.com. You can also watch more video sessions on our YouTube channel, or you can simply mail us your query at mail@ivyleague.us.com. We will be happy to reply any specific questions you have. Thanks for watching this session and your interest in steps towards joining the Ivy League.